Hello everybody, this is Rob.
Brendan.
And today we're going to be reviewing Planes, Trains, and Automobiles for our April Fool's Marathon. It's a comedy starring Steve Martin and John Candy, and it was directed by John Hughes. It's about two guys that are trying to get to Chicago, and they get into a little obstacles along the way. They end up far from Chicago in, I believe, Kansas. Then they make their way to Missouri, and they have to put up with each other, and they're very different personalities. So, Brendan, I think this is an excellent film about frustration during the holidays, because during Thanksgiving and Christmas people are always freaking out and making a big deal of everything. So this I thought was a very good movie, and Steve Martin and John Candy I thought worked very well together. I mean, they're playing two completely different characters. I mean, Martin is this, he's uptight, and John Candy's more lovable. He's kind of a loudmouth, but he's more of a lovable person you'd like to, I guess, sit around and talk to a little bit. And I felt that having the characters being very different from each other made the comedy even better, made even funnier, because I think there's a lot of films where the characters have similar personalities, like in Step Brothers, and I think having two different personalities, I think, has made it much, much stronger.
I agree with you. John Candy character is very optimistic. He loves life. He loves everything about it.
And I love his character.
The Steve Martin character, he's very cynical. In the beginning of the movie, at least, he's very cynical. He's very negative.
Yeah.
And, he's constant, like, nothing goes his way the entire movie. I mean, everything kind of works out for John Candy's character in a way, but Steve Martin he is everything keeps beating him down even more and just makes him more cynical until he meets John Candy's character, and he learns to be a little more optimistic about life.
Yeah, I mean, John Candy, I love his character because he takes Martin's snaps, and he's caring, and like you said, he's optimistic, and I really liked him. And I mean, and I like some of the funny things he was able to do with the movie. Like, my favorite scene with John Candy is when they're driving in the car and he's miming to the music on the radio. I think John Hughes was probably smart to let Candy make up some of this stuff because it was really, really, really great.
Yeah, I think if anyone else did this kind of comedy, and this is John Hughes' take on like a kind of familiar comedy. It's like cross-country comedy, but it's also the fat guy, skinny guy routine, like Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello. It's very familiar, and both of these guys could have been, just kind of caricatures of that. But, with John Hughes, his movies always have that extra level of humanity, and that's where the movie kind of has its more dramatic twists and turns that kind of give the characters, they're realistic. You can feel they're real people, even though they get into some outrageous situations. Yeah,
they've got heart and they got substance, and I think that's kind of missing in a lot of comedies now, where characters seem like they're just walking punchlines and jokes. Here, they got emotions, they got their own agenda, and they got personalities, very good personalities, and I think that really helped make the film for me.
And this is my favorite John Hughes movie. I don't know if you're familiar with his other movies as I am, but this to me is his best one, and the music in it is a little dated.
Yeah.
Much like, it kind of reminded me like the score from like Midnight Run or something like that. Very 80s electronic score. But I think it's one of those movies that if you haven't seen it, you should go back and look at it and see why it's as important as it is.
Yeah, and John Hughes he uses his stock company. Like we see Ben Stein as one of the announcers at an airport. I don't know if you came across this the same way I did. I thought the plot for this movie was probably a little bit thin for like a 90-minute movie, so there were times when I felt like it was becoming formulaic. I mean, it was funny, but after a while I felt like it was just almost going through the same thing.
This is one of my favorite movies. I've seen it so many times that there's always different things to find when you're watching it. When me and my brother were watching this over Thanksgiving, there was one scene in there that we almost fell on the ground laughing, which is when the first hotel they stay in, the owner's son comes to pick them up, and he is just like the ultimate hillbilly, constantly chewing on tobacco, and then when they have to move the big trunk, he's like turns to his wife, and he's like, "Get your lazy ass out here." And he's like, "It's okay, she can handle it."
Yeah.
It was just one of those scenes where a scene like that, for example, you come back to and it catches you off guard even though you've seen it. I think that's a great credit to this movie and other John Hughes movies.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've ever stayed at the end of the credits, but there's some more scenes, at least one more scene after the credits. It's Martin's boss, where he's still looking over at the proposed, I guess, ads for a marketing campaign. Yeah. So I'm usually I'm not crazy about those because I always miss them. Usually when the credits start, to just stop the VCR. But something was telling me, no, you got to watch it to the end. I'm like, okay, fast forward, and then there was bonus stuff at the end.
Yeah, that's another John Hughes trademark there. Sometimes he puts things at the end of the movie, a little snippet. But that one I kind of felt was a little flat. I mean, they could have done something with, I think, John Candy, who is really, like you said, the heart of the movie.
Yeah. I really liked him, and I just like this movie. You know, this was actually the first time I've ever seen this movie, and I gotta say I really liked it. Not my favorite Hughes film. I would probably give Home Alone and Ferris Bueller probably the bigger edge, but this was a very good movie.
I think it's a great movie because it's very comical, like you said, you get different characters.
Yeah.
It's sort of taking that classic comedy duo and sort of doing a new take on it, or John Hughes' take on it at least, and I think it really works, especially with the dramatic beats. They don't feel forced, like, you know, in some more modern movies, they'll throw in the dramatic beats after they've done a lot of really goofy things. This movie has a good balance.
Yeah. And one thing I liked about this movie is that this movie kind of took everybody into a different direction. Like, John Hughes was doing the teen comedies. Steve Martin was mostly doing his own stuff like The Jerk and The Man with Two Brains, I think it was called. And John Candy was getting off of SCTV, and he was doing mostly supporting work, but now it seemed like he was finally getting some good part after all this time. So I felt this movie was definitely showed a bit of a change for everybody.
Yeah, and it's definitely a classic comedy that, you know, I'm glad you were able to finally see it. So hopefully some of our viewers out there, if you haven't checked out Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, you will now.
Yeah, so please do so. Okay, so you know what to do now. Go ahead and leave your comments. Did you like the movie if you've seen it? And of course, leave your comments about the video. Do you think we did a good job with it? Okay, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you guys later.
The band was jumping, the people too, mess around. They're doing the mess around.